It's time to stop. Stop this. Get some help. I'm tired of hanging up all these pictures in the Hall of Shame. Sometimes I feel like I'm living in a madhouse or something because I just hate weapon banners so much. You know, maybe I should clarify that. I don't necessarily hate weapon banners. I hate the idea of signature weapons. I think weapon banners, you know, kind of like how they do it in Sword of Convallaria, that's fine, I guess. You can farm the weapons, you can pretty much just ignore the banner altogether, and you don't really feel like you're missing out on anything. But signature weapons, that's a different story. Come here for a second. Calm down. Calm down. Come here for a second. Boop. I know signature weapons aren't needed, and they're not technically necessary, ever. Are they just tailor-made to fit a specific character and make them function at 100%? Sure. But you can play most of your characters at 90% and be fine, right? Sure. Is that good enough for many players? Definitely, I guess. Let me ask you a question real quick. What would the world look like if there weren't any signature weapon banners? Would the games be better? Would the world look like this? Would playing characters feel more satisfying? What would happen if I stopped asking a bunch of hypothetical? Now, let's take a look at this graph that I made by taking the 20 most popular gacha games and distributing them along this graph that I made. As you can see, the rise of games with weapon banners, with the slightly less rise of games without it. In the infancy of this genre, there were of course many issues. Most popular games didn't have pity systems. Sometimes there was lack of character, class diversity, or creativity. And the overall game quality was just significantly lower. But the idea of a signature weapon hadn't really come to fruition yet. Now we fast forward to today. Many of the most popular games in this genre have signature weapon banners. We don't have problems with no pity. We have pity, hard pities, soft pities, but those are partially artificially negated by the idea of 50-50s, 70-20s. The other 10% is what I send your mom every month. And these companies have almost mastered the practice of fear of missing out. But alongside some of the improvements that we have seen in the genre, there is one that I hate the most, and that is the idea of signature weapons. To me, they aren't just additional power that you can equip onto your character. To me, they are the power that should be on the character already that has been taken away from them. And essentially, in my opinion, it is altering how you should be able to play and build your characters. So let's break it down. Signature weapons, signature equipment, all these best in slot items that were specifically designed to be equipped on certain characters. On the surface, I can see how it seems like a good idea. More ways to fine-tune your characters besides just the standard equipment that 99% of gacha games have, to give players more agency to how their characters perform. However, that's not really the case with how these games work, because of math, there will always be something that is better than the other thing. But the problem is when these signature weapons aren't really ever designed to be general use equipment. They're hyper specific, and in some cases they almost feel like they were made before the character and the character was made to fit the weapon. And I think it's a shame that these characters are obviously designed to play and feel suboptimal without it. Is it really customization, or is it just locking you into super hyper specific builds? Let's look at an example that I do kind of appreciate the way they go about it. Reverse 1999 and their Psy Cubes. They're farmable, multi-use equipment that can be slotted into different builds, offer flexibility without making one piece or Psy Cube feel like it's almost essential. Of course, they're still best in slot equipment. That is just how math works. But it doesn't feel like the character was designed around the Psy Cube, and that is the point. There's an obvious flaw in the way that these signature weapons have been introduced into the genre. And to me, it really boils down to them having a conversation about how can we get low spenders and the mid-range spenders to spend just a little bit more every pack. And that's when the idea of the weapons came in. Whales are gonna whale regardless, so there's no point in including them in this thought. And obviously you can say things like, you don't need the signature weapon to play the character, you can get by just fine with the lower rarity gear. I mean, yes, that is true, of course. These games are not hard games. However, I would like to play a full character. You've either paid with your time or your money, and then you don't even get to play a full character? I can't play a full character and I play the game and I play the game? Not everybody agrees with that. Let's look at this Bozo, for example. Now, obviously, I do not agree with this, but he says you shouldn't pull for a character unless you can afford their signature weapon, because they're going to lose a lot of damage and potential. And if you cannot afford the signature weapon, well then, congratulations. You played yourself. Now, obviously, and rightfully, this guy was clowned on in the reply section. However, like a pencil, he does have one point. You are playing a character that will never reach its full potential, or usefulness. And why is that okay? Should it be okay? I don't know. Possibly. So where does this lead us? Well, for me, it leads me into wanting to check myself into a soft white room because I actually feel like I'm going crazy sometimes. There are occasions when I've heard the saying, this character is not usable without their signature weapon. Now, while I was doing my research for this, I found a pretty egregious example of something like this. I'm not gonna say their name because I don't wanna say it wrong and get shit on in the comment. But let's say, for example, you have a character that really wants a specific main stat on their weapon. However, when this character was released, there was only one weapon with that main stat, being their signature weapon. At that point, you're not even playing a suboptimal character. You're just playing a character that shouldn't be played. Now, to be fair, I do think this problem has gotten a little bit better over the years, but I don't think it should really be a problem in the first place. Now, I highly recommend against playing this game, but I do think this is a prime example of how equipment like this could be better. Take a step back in history with me. Let's look at Fate Grand Order and their craft essence system. Now, each character does have their own unique quote-unquote signature craft essence. However, in this case, the character-specific craft essences are more like trophies for having a mental illness. Congratulations, you played with this one character so much that you raised their bond up to level 10. Are they usable? I'd say 95% of the time, there's just a craft essence that's way better. With the knowledge that those craft essences aren't really that great, most of the time, I can go into several different battles with the same 6 servants and different CEs equipped on all of them every time, and each time they function differently. I'll be honest, I've been playing Cat Fantasy and each character does have their own signature weapon. It's unlocked at level 60 and you can level it up. That's a fine system. You have equipment and then they unlock their signature weapon at level 60. I don't know why I didn't think of that while I was writing this. And if you haven't tried it, you need to try it. I'm baffled by just how much currency they give out on a daily, regular basis. But do we need 8 forms of equipment? Do we need more forms of equipment? These are questions I want you to answer because
I don't think so.
I don't think so. I think these problems are only furthered by characters or developers or games rarely ever updating older characters. Now, should they have to? No, I don't think so. I'm not suggesting that at all. However, newer equipment that comes out is never designed to be usable with, used with, or function with any of the older characters. And that's what leads to these older characters getting power crept to hell and back to hell and back within a couple of patches. And the lack of support, whether that be through updating the actual character or providing more generalized equipment that can be used by these older characters, further limits build diversity, I guess. If characters aren't getting updates and they're just kind of left to stagnate and rot in the toxic hellhole that is a gacha game, players are either stuck pulling on the newer banners or left feeling ashamed like Andy, not wanting to play with Woody anymore, but having to anyways. And I think this problem is further exacerbated by players wanting to know how optimal a setup is. I'm not suggesting or saying that that is a bad thing, okay? Because I do it as well. I'm saying we as the players know how suboptimal and how much potential you're losing by using some of these other forms of equipment. Let's take ZZZ for an example. And let's look at, I don't know, Jane Doe. Her signature weapon interacts with dodges and gives bonuses based on dodging. Now, Jane Doe is a character that interacts especially with dodges by having an additional dodge compared to other characters, as well as being in your special state grants you an alternative dodge. So if we say that she functions at 100% with her signature weapon, what does she function at with the next best option? 86%. Seems pretty bad to me, no? I mean, it's a B, sure. Are you doing your best at a B? Most of you, probably. Sorry. That was mean, I'm sorry.
What do you gain from
that? That was very rude, I'm sorry, okay? Another example is Ellen Jo. Obviously, with her signature weapon, she is designed to function at 100% of whatever. Your next best option would probably be Starlight Engine, or you're playing 80% of Ellen Jo. So just cut off her legs, and now she's actually a shark. To me, I think the worst part about these systems is, even if you have a piece of equipment that might be usable on a certain character, say Starlight Engine, that gives you attack buffs when you dodge. You follow the logic that might be usable on Jane Doe. You can see where someone might come to that conclusion. Not me, of course, but somebody. But you cannot, because Starlight Engine is made for attack characters, and Jane Doe is not that. This leads me to ask, why are we adding artificial limitations on characters and builds that don't make much sense? Now, if you look at an equipment setup for some character in some of these more modern gacha games, you'll see that you already have equipment that doesn't make sense to be used by every character. I agree with that. Every piece of equipment should not be usable on every character.
Wait a minute!
Now, you might think that that is hypocritical of what I just said, and you would be right, except for the fact that I have the option to use all of this equipment on any character. Doesn't mean you should. While planning for this video, I went into it with the mindset that I hate signature weapons and how they impact character design, development, to the point that it feels like the weapon is designed before the character. But what I think the real issue that I have with it is they've imposed another layer of artificial limitations on character building. I think dividing equipment even more, imposing restrictions on what you can and cannot use your equipment on, really limits what you can do with the characters. I think it would be much better if they took the idea of the signature weapon, just kept it in the character's kit, and designed more general use equipment that can be used by any character if you want to. So to put this example into practice, you could take Jane's signature weapon, you could give her the bonuses that she gets from the dashes from it, then throw that shit in the trash and do something else. And then had a weapon that was a mixture of Jane's signature and Starlight Engine that you could put on any class. There's just one stat on the weapon and maybe it's farmable. So you could sit there and farm for this fusion weapon that has attack main stat or AP main stat or pen main stat. But anyways, now obviously I'm not some dude coming out here with some super hot take or whatever. This is a very common sentiment. I just wanted to put my thoughts into words on why I dislike it. And it actually led me to a different conclusion than I would have thought originally. I don't hate the idea of signature weapons. I don't hate the idea of additional equipment and additional ways to provide power for your characters or whatever. But I do hate that we've now added another layer of limits on your equipment because you can't put everything on your character. You're limited on the amount of spaces you have for equipment. You're limited on what stats are good on your character. You're limited on the RNG roles of your equipment. Sometimes massive power spikes being locked behind duplicate copies of the character. Now you're limited on the additional weapon that you can equip. I don't like that. And if these signature weapons were designed to be used by every character, not saying that they should design it around every character, if they didn't have restriction of character class on it or character group or whatever the hell, I think the issue of power creep and things like that would be, less of a problem. And I think it would allow for more experimentation with builds and play styles. Because you can play a character in many different ways. And the game that has ingrained that kind of build expression or diversity or whatever is Dota 2. It's not a gacha game, I know that. You can play a character wherever and however the hell you want to. Is there an optimal way to play it? Sure. But when new items, etc. get introduced into the game, sometimes that changes. Like if you look at Medusa, this thing has always been a hyper late game carry that farms incredibly fast. And when you get long enough into the game, she becomes unkillable, literally. At one point recently, she was played as an offlaner.
Who's playing Dusa? It's an offlane, no way. Oh my god.
Because of new items that were introduced and some small changes to her kit. The offlaner is like the top laner. Except not really, but kind of. That's the best I got for you. I would like to see in the future less limitations on equipment. Is it gonna happen? Of course not, obviously. I'm just one fucking guy. Would I like to see it? Of course. Let me know what you guys think. I would love to hear your thoughts and your concerns and your dreams and your hope and your fears. What are you scared of? You can tell me. I'll listen. Well, I won't listen. I will not reply, but I will read it. Probably won't even read it, but you can post it. Someone will read it, maybe. What do you think about that? I might heart it though. Is that okay? No? Well, I didn't want to listen anyways. Anyways, that's all for me. Bye.